So this is actually my second video doing a top 15 Steam Deck list for this year alone. If you haven't already watched my previous list, I'll go ahead and leave a link in the description below so you'll actually get 30 great games with both of these videos combined. But the reason that I'm making a second video is quite simple. It's simply because I'm constantly finding great and fun games that feels perfect to play on the Steam Deck. I've said it before, and I'll just go ahead and say it again. The Steam Deck truly has transformed how I play games. I'm constantly playing on this thing, and even for console games like the PlayStation 5, I often find myself using remote play on the Steam Deck by using Chiaki for Deck, and it's a great experience. So, I mean, this thing is just such a versatile device, but what we're going to do today is that we're going to take a look at 15 more games that I think is a great fit for the Steam Deck. Now, before we get started, though, do kind of understand that this is not meant to be a definitive list or anything like that. It's really just games that I would recommend. One thing that I've really noticed about a lot of these Steam Deck list videos is that they're often contrived of big AAA games that are very popular. And okay, that's fine and everything. It's really cool that a lot of those games can actually run on a device like this in the first place. But truth be told, that's not how I use the Steam Deck. I use it more for games that, in my opinion, feels good on a smaller screen, because personally, I do prefer to play some games on a bigger screen with better hardware. Now, if you like to play those type of games on a Steam Deck, hey, that's completely up to you. So, I mean, that's just my opinion, but understanding that, let's just go and have some fun and get right into it. Number 15, and to start off this list, I'm going to go ahead and go with an oldie but a goodie, the Quake HD remasters. Now, truthfully, you can replace this with any quote-unquote boomer shooter, whether that be Dusk, Turok, or Doom, to name a few. But the reason that I think that these games feel perfect on the deck is because of its gyro support. In my opinion, these type of games don't necessarily feel great on a traditional controller. They require fast, precise movement. So my recommendation for these type of games is to either have a mouse, or in this case, have gyro support. Now, I will say that there is a learning curve to gyro. Not everybody necessarily likes it at first, but if you stick with it, it really does make a difference, and then you'll just kind of ask yourself, how in the world did I ever play these games without gyro support? It really does make a huge difference. So definitely check out the Quake HD remasters or other quote-unquote boomer shooters if you want. So far, I really haven't played one that doesn't feel great on the Steam Deck. Number 14, the Yakuza series, or more specifically, I'm going to go with the Yakuza Collection and Yakuza 6. These are legitimately some of the best story-driven games ever, and I think the HD remasters work very well on the Steam Deck. If you play around with their settings, it's not all that hard to get them locked to about 40, 45, or even 60 frames per second without a ton of visual sacrifice. So they run like a dream, and if you want a rich story, you're really not going to find many games out there that can go toe-to-toe with the Yakuza series. Now, I do understand that this series can be a little bit intimidating by this point, though, just kind of because of how many games there are. But I'm telling you, it is completely 100% worth the investment. Number 13, I have to go with Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. I know a lot of fans out there have begged and begged and begged Sega some more for a new Jet Set Radio game. And to be fair, they finally listened, as a new Jet Set Radio game is currently in development. Though that's still probably a few years out, and in the meantime, we do have Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, which is a Jet Set spiritual successor, and a very good one at that. It's got the same composer, it's got that stylized visual art style, and the fun platforming that the series is known for. It even has an interesting story, albeit it's a little weird. You play as a guy who quite literally lost his head, but it is a fun story and just an overall fun game. Even better here is that it can run up to 90 frames per second on the Steam Deck OLED. Yeah, 90 frames, so this is definitely a good fit on the Steam Deck. Number 12, for you puzzle fans out there, I have a really unique one, being Humanity. Now, a short explanation for this game is that it's almost a mixture of Lemmings with some of the Ratchet & Clank A Crack in Time puzzles. If you played either one of those games, you might understand what I'm trying to say here, but basically, you play as a dog that guides these people to their goal. So there's actually a little bit of platforming involved, but more or less, you can tell them to go left, you can tell them to go right, forward, and backwards, and it's all simple on the surface, but where it gets really interesting is that they introduce unique properties to completely change how you would think about a traditional obstacle. It's a very clever puzzle game, and a part of that I really have to give credit to its outstanding music. See, Humanity actually comes from the same developer that made Tetris Effect, so it probably shouldn't be a big surprise that its soundtrack is really good, and I think that it heightens its overall experience. Number 11, another Crab's Treasure. A lot of people have Elden Ring fever right now, and it's constantly one of the most popular Steam Deck games out there. And I'll say for a very good reason. That's honestly one of my favorite games as well. And technically, it can run on a Steam Deck. But for anybody who likes Souls-likes, another option is another Crab's Treasure. I feel like this game fits very well on a handheld device thanks to its colorful art style, and it is a Souls-like, or as they describe it, a Shells-like. It might not necessarily be as difficult, but you play as a hermit crab who's trying to buy back his repossessed shell. So he has to use trash for armor and fight off enemies on his grand adventure to get his shell back. It's a very tongue-in-cheek, humorous game with a fun overall story. Now, I will say that this game is a little bit more demanding than what you might expect for its art style, though. This is not a game that you're going to be able to run at max settings. I did have to actually lower it a little bit. I had luck by lowering its settings and limiting it to about 40 to 45 frames per second, and I thought it felt pretty good there. Number 10, Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary Edition. Now, this is a remaster for obviously a 20-year-old game, as the name implies, but I think for that reason, there's a lot of people today that just hasn't gotten a chance to play this game. So I think the remaster, especially on a Steam Deck, is a great way to introduce new and to reintroduce old fans to one of the most fascinating worlds in all of gaming. Its art style has aged incredibly well, especially with some of its improvements that really helps bring together, in my opinion, one of the most fascinating worlds in gaming. I just love its rich sci-fi world, and it also has great characters and a story that really brings that world to life. I mean, there's a reason that even after all of these years, fans still want that long-developed sequel, and who knows, maybe Ubisoft will finally finish it eventually. We can only hope by this point, but this truly is a great game that feels really good on the Steam Deck. Number 9, Kumitsugami, Path of the Goddess. You know, us gamers, we always like to talk about how we want more creative games from these big-time publishers. And that's exactly what Kumitsugami is. Capcom took a creative swing and they just knocked it out of the park. Kumitsugami is a unique combination of strategy mixed in with action hack-and-slash combat. I'd almost kind of say that this is a tower defense game in disguise, but it really just feels like a breath of fresh air compared to a lot of other games that we see come out anymore. If you're on the fence though, one really cool thing about this game is that you can try its free demo and you can see for yourself if you like its unique gameplay. This will be one of those games that you'll have to limit its frame rate down to about 40 to 45 frames per second with FSR though. That way you can get a more stable experience. Number 8, I'm going to go with Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. Ubisoft finally decided that Prince of Persia deserves a new game. And I mean, it might be a little bit different than what fans expected. But I'll tell you this right now, it turned out remarkably well. It's handled by the same studio that brought us Rayman Origins and Rayman Legends. I consider them to be among the very best 2D platformers ever made, and you can absolutely tell that The Lost Crown came from the same studio. Its platforming feels very good. It's a blast to play with its time manipulation abilities. The combat feels really nice as well, especially if you play it on harder difficulties, if you want that extra challenge. And dare I say, I think this is actually one of the better Metroidvanias that's on the market right now. Now, I do understand that this genre feels a little bit oversaturated by this point, but The Lost Crown, I think it stands out among the crowd. Now, there for a while, this game was exclusive to the Ubisoft store because Ubisoft makes bad decisions, but that's finally changed. It's now available on Steam and easier than ever to play on the Steam Deck. Number 7, Project Zomboid. Now, there's a lot of zombie games in the market, but this early access game, that almost kind of reminds me of the Sims series a little bit might secretly be among the very best. This is an authentic zombie survival experience that gives you that apocalyptic feel where you're kind of meant to die. It's not like a lot of other games where it's so much a question of if you'll die, but it's more about how long can you survive in its harsh world. And that might sound brutal at first, but if you look through its Steam reviews, you'll quickly notice that there's a ton of user reviews explaining all of the unique ways that they've died, yet they still absolutely love it. And that's kind of the thing about this game. It'll really surprise you with its depth. As an added bonus, it's also a great cooperative game as well. So if you have a few friends that are looking for a good game to play, then don't sleep on Project Zomboid. And for number 6, I'm going to go ahead and cheat a little bit on this one and include 2 different games, but they're both for you Final Fantasy VII fans. Technically, yes, you can play Final Fantasy VII Remake on the Steam Deck, but personally, I do prefer to play that one on the big screen with more powerful hardware. However, for me, I will say that I think the Steam Deck might be the best way to play Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion. This is a remake for an old PSP game, so it feels right at home on a handheld device like this, and it runs superbly well. Visually, I think it looks great, and you can easily run it at 40 to 45 frames per second locked. Now, as a bit of a preface here, though, this is a prequel to Final Fantasy VII, so it's best played knowing that story, and with that in mind, that's also why I included Final Fantasy VII Echo S. Now, this is actually a modded version of Final Fantasy VII that adds complete voice acting, and it's an unbelievably good mod at that. It really adds to that original Final Fantasy VII experience, which, I mean, is already one of the greatest games ever made. So install that in Seventh Heaven mods, where you can easily install a ton of different improvements. There's plenty of tutorials out there in how to do this. You can easily do it on the Steam Deck. You can easily improve its visuals. You can change out models to make them look more modern. You can improve the cinematics, and it just looks and feels absolutely incredible on the Steam Deck. It really makes one of the best games ever that much better. Now, here we are in the top 5, and I'm going to go with Fallout 4 and Fallout New Vegas. I mean, we've seen a major comeback this year for the Fallout franchise, in large part because of the Amazon series, but also because, I mean, these are still just amazing games. They have great atmospheric worlds that are fun to explore. And the thing about Bethesda games, and in this case, Fallout, is that they're not like a lot of other games in the sense that you should just simply complete the main quest and move on. One thing that makes Fallout special is the sense of discovery as you explore and all of the different side quests that you can stumble onto. So if you haven't already played these games, then I'd say the Steam Deck is a great option. And hey, being a part of the PC community, you're also going to have access to a ton of mods, including one of the newest being Fallout London. Number 4, Persona 3 Reload. In my last video, I mentioned that JRPGs like the Persona series are among the best games that you can play on the Steam Deck. They feel right at home. And now, we can also add the newest entry, Persona 3 Reload, to that list. Of course, this is a remake for Persona 3, but the visuals are more similar to Persona 5. It's very stylized, and it really pops off the Steam Deck screen, especially on the OLED model. But I will say, do make sure to turn off its reflections in the settings, that way you'll actually get good performance. If you like turn-based JRPGs, though, I mean, this really is one of the better games that you can play. And if you've never played any of these games before, the way they work is that you play as a high school student who fights off demons in a parallel universe, all while balancing their everyday school life. So the game is really split into 2 different categories. In the human world, it's more kind of like a social sim. And then in the demon world, you explore dungeons and fight and capture demons. It has a really great story and fun characters that makes the experience memorable. So if you like JRPGs, which for me, the Steam Deck really is my go-to device for this genre right now, then I'd say Persona 3 Reload is an easy recommend. Number 3, Forza Horizon 4. Now, I chose this one for two different reasons. One is because, it's a fantastic game, and you can honestly make a very real debate that it's among the absolute best racing games ever made. You explore an open-world racing game in a shared world experience. There's a ton of cars to unlock. It's got best-in-class customization with how you can paint and share designs online. It has dynamic seasons, and it's just a ton of fun to explore and race. It really brings racing culture to video games, and it runs pretty well on the Steam Deck. I'd say about 40 to 45 frames per second is the best way to play, but I've seen some people go for lower settings at 60 frames as well. It's really up to you, but 40 might be the better option for a smoother, stable experience. The other reason that I want to highlight this game, though, is because, as unfortunate as it is, it will get delisted on December 15th of 2024. However, Xbox has already confirmed that they will have some steep discounts for this game, and if you own it, even after it gets delisted, you're still going to be able to play it with all of its online features. So I'd say go ahead and wishlist this one, and as soon as it goes on discount, definitely pick this one up before it's too late. It really is an experience that any racing fan should have. Number 2, Metroid AM2R. So this one might surprise some people because this is actually a fan-made remake for Metroid 2 that was created for PC. So as weird as it might sound, you can't play this one on a Nintendo device, but you can play it on the Steam Deck. I recently played through it myself on hard mode, and it really is an amazing game. I love the Metroid series myself and its alien world. I just think that it's so atmospheric and just a joy to play. Now, I'm not going to show its gameplay on my channel, though, just because Nintendo can be kind of weird about this type of stuff. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to include gameplay for Metroid Zero Mission to kind of illustrate a game that has similar enough visuals, but even still, I'd say AM2R does look a bit better than this. Now, if you are interested in this game, though, there are tutorials on how to install it. It's pretty easy to do, and once you have its launcher, what I did is that I added its launcher as a non-Steam game, and from then on out, it worked perfectly. And at the number 1 spot, I have the Kingdom Hearts series, which is finally available on Steam. It's hard to believe that it took them this long. I mean, this is Square Enix that we're talking about, but here we are, and if I had to explain this series in one single word, I would say that they're magical. Now, if I added another word, I would also say that they're convoluted. Its story can be all over the place at times because every single game is important in some shape or form. And this is a pretty long series, but you know what? I think that it's worth it. Is it a time sink? Absolutely. It requires a long investment. But I still think when all is said and done, I'd say that this is one of the most memorable gaming franchises out there. I think in a lot of ways, it's a special experience that always keeps you hooked. And I think especially the mainline games. They're just a ton of fun to play, and I think that they feel perfect on a handheld device. They have great worlds that kind of combines, I would say, a little bit of Final Fantasy with Disney World. It's kind of a weird mashup, but you know what? It just works. I like the main characters and its overarching story, and also think that it just has one of the best soundtracks in all of gaming. So if you haven't already experienced these games, or if you want to play through them to prepare for the eventual Kingdom Hearts 4, then I'd say the Steam Deck is a great option to play through the dearly beloved series. If you know, you know. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this list. I hope you enjoyed it, but if you have any recommendations at all, let me hear them in the comments below. Maybe I'll go ahead and check those out in the future as well, because I do plan on making more of these videos. And with that said, go and hit that subscribe button if you are interested in more content just like this. Until next time, peace out.